Welcome to WholeCEO with Lisa G. I'm the best-selling author of The Boss Weight Loss. I'm bringing you the top tips to be unstoppable. This is a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity to actually pull up a chair with today's top experts in mindset, weight loss, business, and more. Learn our top tips so that you can have more energy, be fit and resilient, feel unstoppable, unshakable, and unbreakable. He's a co-founder of Own It Coaching, the creator of the Own It app with a multiple seven-figure coaching company that applies health and performance, sports performance, sleep, recovery, with clients ranging from NHL stars to Fortune 500 executives to entrepreneurs looking to level up. He has a holistic approach to health and performance. His philosophy is that performance is realized when health is optimized, and we can't separate physical, emotional, mental, and spiritual health. He's spoken at TEDx. He's the host of the Sports Science and Recovery podcast and the Own It show, and the author of 3 Amazon bestsellers, including Intent, a practical approach to applied sports science for athletic development, and Own It. Welcome to the podcast, Justin Roethlingshoefer.
Nailed it, Lisa. How are you?
I'm so glad I nailed it. I was worried about the last name. So nice to meet you. I love what you're all about, and I want to jump into the content and help our audience with performance. And what does it mean to have soul health?
Well, it's such a great question. When we think about ourselves, so often we're thinking about the flesh and like, what does it mean to make sure that our bodies are well? But we have to understand that we're just souls having a human experience. And when we can come back to understand what our soul is made up of, it's made up of 4 things: our heart, our mind, our body, and our environment. And so our heart is everything that we desire. We have different needs, different wants, but at the core, there's a desire. And I'll give this example in a second when I kind of get to the end. Then we have our mind, which is our thoughts and our beliefs. Like, what do we think about ourselves? But our thoughts and beliefs are fueled ultimately by what we desire most. Our thoughts and beliefs then impact that body component, which is our habits and behaviors, and ultimately our lifestyle. That was the body part of our soul. And lastly is our environment, which if we go back to it, our heart and our desires ultimately determine our thoughts and beliefs from our mind, which impact our body and our actions, behaviors, and habits, which create our environment and the relationships that we end up engaging in, the space that we end up taking up, what we end up putting out into this world. And that is our soul. That's what it means to be truly healthy, having a soul health. And when we think about that, it creates this massive change. And I'll give you this in like a practical example. I had a client come through our ecosystem probably about a year ago. And when he came, he had just sold his company for about 400 million, and it was his 4th exit, north of 10 figures. And he came and he's like, he's got all the vacations, he's got all the cars, he's got all the houses. And he's just like, Justin, something's missing. Like, I'm just not happy. And like, I'm fit, I'm well, I travel, I feel okay, but like, there's something missing. And I was like, okay, like, what do you like? Why are you here? He's like, well, I want to lose 30 pounds. And I was like, and let's call this client, John. I said, John, what's on the other side of those 30 pounds that's available to you there, but not available to where you are today? And he thought about it, and these tears welled up in his eyes. And he goes, honestly, I just want my kid to see me as like a real life superhero. And that was his heart's desire. That's what he wanted most. That was what was like driving that internal need, Well, all of a sudden, that internal need and desire, when we were able to harness that, changed his mindset, changed his thoughts and beliefs. All of a sudden, he now believed that he had to do certain actions and behaviors, which led to his bodily changes, which ultimately led to his environmental changes that he was putting himself in. He had to pull himself out of certain situations. He had to stop interacting with certain people. He had to stop eating certain things. He had to stop putting himself in certain opportunities. Well, all of a sudden, 7 months later, he's not down 30 pounds, he's down 50.
Oh my gosh.
And we get to Halloween and he's got this like little plan to dress up as Batman. And he dressed up as Batman. His son dressed up as Batman. But his son didn't know it. And he surprised him. And he jumped out from behind the door. And he gave me this. He sent me this video. And all of a sudden, on this video, you hear in the background as his wife's filming him. And he jumps out, and the kid goes, "Whoa, Dad, you're like a real life superhero."
Oh
And
my gosh.
so if you look at how that whole component wraps itself around, that's soul health. It wasn't about getting more money. It wasn't about losing weight. It wasn't about getting the cars, the accolades, the job, hitting a certain target. Those are all awesome. Those are all a part of health, mental, physical, spiritual, emotional. But when we talk about true soul health, it needs to all be in alignment. It needs to start with your heart and getting to what you truly desire, to changing the way you think and believe, to changing your bodily habits and functionalities, to ultimately then creating the change in your environment.
So is that just digging into like his why, like why he wanted to do it to help motivate him to get to that level of his son ultimately thinking he was a real life superhero?
So it's so much deeper. So when you come back to like, I say that Simon Sinek ruined it for everybody, because when you say like what's your why, what's your purpose, that's such a big thing. That's such a big question. It's a loaded question on somebody. Like, Lisa, why are you here on this earth? What's your purpose? What's your why? What are you supposed to do? Or Justin, what's your purpose? What's your, it's like, oh my gosh, that's daunting. That's big. Like, and there's all these people that have put out the 5 steps to find your purpose and a weekend to identify your why. And it's like, well, it's not that simple. It doesn't exist like that. It's iterative. You're going to find your why today, what you think is your why, but next week you're going to have a little pivot, or next month or next year. And you could have 45 pivots. And I think that's where a lot of people get stuck, is they've gone through maybe to one of these seminars and all of a sudden they think that, oh, I've got my why, I've got my purpose. But then something drastic happens in their life and their child dies, or they get divorced, or they get fired, or they go into bankruptcy. Well, that was my why. That was my purpose. That was my identity. That's not your identity. That's not your identity. That was just your desire at the time. That was just what was there. But guess what? Whatever's happened now for you, because this is now going to reroute you to where you need to be. And as you get rerouted, that desire is that that lighthouse that continues to push us forwards. And when we think about this holistically, we talk about stress. And where we really come at this from a holistic health standpoint is we run on the component of soul health, looking at the entire being, holistic, all encompassing. The words holistic and integrated are thrown around way too flippantly in this industry. By definition, holistic and integrated, holistically integrated health. That's what you hear often, or holistic medicine practitioner, or holistic functionally integrated doctor. Like, okay, cool. Let's see what those words actually mean. Holistic means all. It means it means complete. Where integrated means together, oneness.
Mm-hmm.
Mental, physical, spiritual, emotional. So when you go to your functional medicine doctor and all of a sudden they do a gut biome test on you and say, oh, here's all your supplements, go look after it. That's not holistic and integrated.
Right.
When they sit down with you and do an intake questionnaire and say, Lisa, tell me about your childhood. and let me understand why you have aches in your shoulders. And they ask you one question about your childhood, and then all of a sudden do a blood test and say, oh, here's your 25 foods you're allowed to eat for the rest of your life. That's not holistic and integrated. We
Yeah.
have to look at mental, physical, spiritual, emotional stressors that are going on with somebody. And the uniqueness about this is that mental, physical, spiritual, and emotional stressors can be communicated to us through a number called HRV, heart rate variability. And heart rate variability ultimately helps us know how we're adapting to stress and strain that's on our body, mentally, physically, spiritually, emotionally. And our body's response to any form of stress, because it doesn't know the difference, is inflammation. And
Right.
so when stress responses, no matter mental, physical, spiritual, emotional, is inflammation, and we are under chronic stress and we don't realize it, we have chronic inflammation in our body, thus which creates chronic illness. Why do we think that 71% of all deaths in the United States are caused from chronic illnesses? 71% caused
From
from chronic illnesses.
inflammation.
Caused from chronic illnesses, originated through inflammation of chronic
Yeah.
inflammation, stemming back to chronic stress and being unaware of how to deal with mental, physical, spiritual, emotional stress. You could be sitting here, and I will go back to John for a second. You could be sitting here like John, struggling with that desire, like struggling with that spiritual stress that's just on you. You're constantly thinking, that's creating an inflammatory response in your body, because it's like, hey, I've got to protect you.
Yes.
Conversely, you've got the person who's out of shape, that isn't fit and eats a lot of artificial processed foods and drinks sugary drinks. They're having a lot of inflammatory responses from a physical stressor.
Right.
Conversely, you have somebody who's going through the sale of their company, or even worse, bankruptcy in their company, or even another way, or a divorce, mental and
Yeah.
emotional stressors in their life, but yet causes the same result, inflammation, because our body's trying to protect us. And HRV is that metric that gives us that information to truly know how we're adapting and where we need to make changes, ultimately to see ourselves bounce back in a more impactful and effective way.
Well, I really like how you dug so deep into stress right now, because I feel like we're living in such uncertain times, and that stress really is a killer, and that the holistic approach that you're taking with not just looking at the physical, like, yeah, I want to lose 30 pounds, and why do I want to lose it? Because I want my son to think I'm a superhero, but even digging deeper into stress right now, I think is such a hot topic. And really looking at the physical markers for why are we so stressed and having heart disease be so prevalent. So what is the importance of owning our different? I saw that was your tagline. I'd like to pivot into a different conversation right now, because I love your passion and how you own it. And how can we all really own our different?
Yeah, when you think about different, I love this word. This word is so magical to me. There's so much power behind it, because when you think about something that you look at, when you think of Elon Musk, what do you think? Man, that guy just thinks different. When you think about
Yeah.
Kobe Bryant, man, that guy just had a different mentality. When you think about Michael Jordan, man, that guy just had a different athletic ability. When you think about LeBron James, man, that guy's just built different. When you think about Oprah, man, her heart is just different. Like, these people are just people like you and I. But what they've done is they've leaned into and owned their different. We were each made to be great at something.
Yes.
We were all made to be world class at something. We all have a different. But yet when we lean into that and we take ownership of that different, and then we go into it exactly what we just talked about, and we live different than what the world tells us. The world tells us, hey, everything has a cookie cutter approach. Everything has a step-by-step approach that you need to do that the world has told us how to operate in. But the
Yeah.
moment that you take ownership of what you need to do, what your routines look like, not what Lisa's morning routine is or Justin's morning routine is, but what does your morning routine look like to get your soul aligned, heart, mind, body, and environment, so that you can go do what you were meant and built to do, so that you can go lean into your different and take ownership of your different and put your different into the world. That's what ownership means. That's what living different means. And when you live different, you can feel different, you get different results, and you just live a different life. And you would look at what you were doing pre-ownership, and it's like, man, I don't even recognize that person. I don't even recognize that life. I don't like that life. And yet, by living intentionally and on purpose, and we're not just talking about the woo-woo, like what's your purpose, what's your why stuff. We're talking about like true health, the energy,
Yeah.
the vitality, the
Yes.
depth of sleep, the showing up in the morning. And it's not about eating a certain diet or meditating a certain way or breathing a certain way or sleeping a certain way or a certain night or morning routine. It's about knowing what your body is, and living differently starts with knowing HRV. Living differently starts with knowing your own individual biomarkers, starts with understanding, how is my body adapting mentally, physically, spiritually, emotionally to my stressors? How is my body adapting to these things? And then making that the standard for how you operate. That's living differently. That's owning your different. That's owning what your body is asking you to do. And when you do that, you feel different. Your energy is different. Your sleep is different. Your outcomes are different. All things that
Yeah.
people are wanting, all things that people are looking for, because you're now aligned mentally, physically, spiritually, emotionally. And the stress meter is no longer dialed right up to the end of the end of the area where you're just in this burnout phase all the time. You now have this rhythm where you're taking on stress and being able to put it back, taking on stress and being able to put it back, because you're living intentionally. You know where you need to focus. You know where you need to lean. You know how this all comes together so that you can truly feel empowered over your different, and empowered over this vessel that you're living in for 80, 90, 100 years, and ultimately get the most out of it and experience life on a different frequency.
Okay. So once we own our different and we want to be like an Oprah or Michael Jordan or Kobe, then do we have to just take consistent action to make sure that we're on purpose, we know what to do, and we get there?
I mean, it's a little bit different than that. It takes a little bit more than that. At 12 years old, my dad said to me, son, talent will get you noticed, but consistency will get you paid. And being able to be consistent, being able to live this way, live in alignment, be focused, be act in accordance to what your body's asking, has to be done on a consistent level. Consistency will beat intensity every day of the week. You show up for, I had a conversation, well, he's actually one of our consultants, and his Instagram account was 1200 on February 14th of 2022. It's now February 23rd, 23. It's a year and 2 weeks later.
Yeah.
He was at about 1,300 Instagram followers. He made it a point every day to post 3 times a day for a year. He never missed it. Never missed it. Not one day, not a holiday,
Right.
not anything. Consistency. He's now at 1.4 million followers
Wow. That's
in
impressive
just over a
consistency.
year.
Very
And
impressive
so,
consistency. Yeah.
we think, oh, I'm gonna go to the gym twice a day for the next month. Well, no, why don't we just try going 5 days a week for the next year?
Right.
I'm gonna
I
I'm
love
gonna
that.
I'm gonna eat so regimented. Well, no, why don't we understand what your body actually needs and then be focused on implementing that day in and day out and implement little habits? Why don't we just focus on eating 3 meals a day that don't have any artificial sugars in them? Why don't we focus on that instead of just eating salads for the rest of your life? Like, let's get a little bit more specific. And when we live different, when we own your different, that's what we're talking about. Understanding what your body's requiring, having a data set to go off of. And HRV is nothing more than helping us understand where we are. If we know where we are, then we can ultimately figure out where we need to go to get to where we want to. The issue is everybody knows where they want to be. Everybody knows that picture of true health. They wake up in the morning energized. They've got energy to spend with their kids before they go to work out in the morning, get some high quality intentional work time in, go to work all day, come home at night, have energy to play with the kids again, energy to spend with your spouse, fall asleep at night, feeling great, get a deep rested sleep and wake up and do it all over again. Like that's the energy that people want. They know what that life looks like, but because they don't know where they are today, they don't have a metric, a KPI to continue to go back to. They continue to just take left and right turns and they continue to stay lost, and they will continue to be on that same pattern and trajectory unless something comes in and interrupts it, which is data filled and a KPI that gives you an understanding of where you are. When you know where you are, you're never lost.
I love it. Well, where can people find more about you to be truly unstoppable and have that kind of data, scientific data at our fingertips?
Yeah, you can find me on Instagram at Justin Roth, Justin ROETH. And you can also just go to ownitcoaching.com and find everything that you need there to get in touch with us and our team.
Well, thanks, Justin, for being a great guest on WholeCEO with Lisa G.
You're welcome.
Thanks for coming to WholeCEO with Lisa G. After over 20 years helping people lose weight and get fit, I'm so excited to announce that I found the missing link with my coaching. Message me if you want to learn how to look better, feel better, and go faster with a master. Lisa G at lisagfit.com.